And now your host, Richard Thomas.
Hello, and welcome to It's a Miracle. Do you believe it's possible for the dead to communicate with the living? That there's a link between the spirit world and our own? Well, we've gathered together several stories that suggest that there truly are angels among us. First, we travel back to 1986 and an event that shocked the nation. But it wasn't until after this terrifying incident had ended that the biggest shock of all took place. Cokeville, Wyoming is the kind of town anyone would love to raise children in. The setting is beautiful, the community is close-knit, and it's safe, or so everyone assumed.
May 16th, 1986 started out like any other day. I had just returned from the lunchroom and was sitting at my computer doing the lunch count. I looked up and saw this man and woman approaching the counter at my office.
Hi, what can I do for you?
You and this entire school are being taken hostage. This is a revolution. Let me show you how easy it would be to blow this school up.
To her horror, Christine Cook saw that the man, David Young, was attached to a homemade bomb.
And he said, "This is connected to my wrist. If I move my wrist, it will go off."
If anybody bumps, hits, or shoots me, it's over.
You only had to look into his eyes. I have never seen eyes like that before in my life. I hope I never see eyes like that again.
Stop. Get over here by me.
What? Is he joking?
Now.
Now!
I felt totally helpless. By that time, he had us taken hostage. And he just said, "Follow me."
Open the door.
As we walked into the classroom, I felt extremely sick to my stomach because I realized that it was no longer just a few adults that were in trouble, that we had children now involved too. I thought, oh, not my children.
Excuse me, sir. We're right in the middle of
Sit down and
class.
shut up. This is a revolution. We're all hostages.
First grader Nathan Hartley was sitting nearby.
He was very wild looking. He kind of walked in and took charge of the place.
Also present that day was 6-year-old Katie Walker.
We just thought he was coming for a school assembly. And then, as we were sitting there, the guns started to line along the chalkboard, and we didn't really realize what was going on, but as more guns lined the chalkboard, we kind of got a little bit scared and didn't really know what he was going to do.
Meanwhile, David Young's wife, Doris, began rounding up the rest of the school children and staff. Katie's sister, Rachel, and brother, Travis, were among the new arrivals.
My teacher called us and said, "We need to get to this assembly." I don't even think that the teachers knew what was going on at first. We were very trusting. We felt safe.
When everyone had finally assembled, Young told them that he had a bomb and that he was prepared to use it.
The man told us it would level our whole town, that none of us would survive. And that's always stuck with me, him saying that. This whole town, there won't be nothing left.
With everyone duly warned, it was now time for David Young to tell the world what he wanted.
The man chose our principal, Mr. Axel, to be his spokesperson.
It's time to make that call. You tell him my demands.
Young's demands included $2 million ransom per child for a total of more than $300 million. Little Nathan Hartley's father, Ron, would be the chief investigator.
We didn't have that kind of money in all of the state of Wyoming, let alone be able to raise that in Cokeville. You have no resources. And so you're just standing there with this profound, empty, gut-wrenching fear.
Like Ron Hartley, paramedic Glenna Walker's 3 children, Travis, Rachel, and Katie, were also trapped inside.
I had just become certified as an EMT, and this was actually my first run. At first, I thought maybe this was another drill, but then I realized that I had 3 children, and I knew that that was too cruel to test us in that manner. We started seeing SWAT teams and FBI stop, and so I knew that it was serious. And I wondered how soon I would see them, or if I would ever see them again.
Meanwhile, inside the classroom, the situation was growing more dangerous by the minute. Gasoline had begun leaking from the bomb.
And it made us sick. And it started giving us headaches because it was in that room and it was strong.
Could we open a door, please?
At first, he didn't really want us to, but he did relinquish and let us do that. He made us barricade the doors so that the kids couldn't sneak out or anybody couldn't leave without him knowing. The atmosphere in the room was very, very tense. The children were very upset, and we were all really afraid that somebody would bump him and accidentally make the bomb go off.
Can I get some tape and make a square around you to keep the kids away from you?
And so they got some masking tape and they drew a square around him.
Okay, kids, we're playing a game now. You need to stay out of the square.
He told us, kids, this is the magic square, and don't go near the square, because if you go in it, the man said he'd shoot us.
By now, news of what was happening had reached the students' parents, and they began gathering outside.
It was a terrible experience that day to see people so scared and so fearful for their own children.
You cannot cross over this line. I can't let you do it. Please, stay back.
I needed to help keep the parents away from the lines so that if anything did happen, that the EMTs and firemen could get in and rescue the children.
After 2.5 hours, the situation was at a standstill. Something had to give.
We started getting really scared. He was telling us things about our families, that we wouldn't see them again. And I'm not for sure who said it, but someone said, let's have a prayer.
I could see little groups of children getting together, and their heads were bowed and they were praying. I was watching him at the time, and I noticed that there was sweat on his forehead and he was just acting more nervous. And when I saw him starting to change some, all of a sudden this calm feeling came over me. And I don't really understand what happened there, except that I knew that something was changing.
As the man was getting more and more nervous, he needed to go somewhere to regain his composure.
Doris. Take this, I gotta get out of here for a minute.
So he handed the trigger to his wife to hold until he got back.
After the man left the classroom, the children got quite noisy for a bit, and the woman says, "It's too noisy in here."
Right, listen up. It's quiet time. It's quiet time.
Fearing the children would upset the woman now in control of the bomb, their teacher appealed to them.
It's quiet time. It's quiet time, children.
And she said, "Children, we need to be quiet because teacher's getting a headache." She moved her hand to her head, and then the lady with the bomb said, "I'm getting a headache too." And as she said it, she raised her hand to her head. And as she raised her hand, I just for a split second realized it was the hand with the cord on it. There was a loud boom, and almost instantly, complete blackness in the room. It was so dark in there that I couldn't tell if anyone was alive on the other side of the room. So I started just grabbing kids and just throwing them out the doorway.
Rachel Walker was near the windows.
And I remember being picked up and pushed through a window. And I remember one of the teachers looking at me and saying, "Run, run." And I ran as fast as I could.
As I saw the children coming out of the school, and they were so afraid. Some of them were burned, some of them were in a lot of pain. I wondered what my 3 children would be like. And as I found each of them, and that they were alive, I don't think anything in my entire life has ever been so wonderful. I realized that I could have lost 3 of my beautiful children that day.
But miraculously, not a single child or teacher was killed.
When I couldn't feel any more children, I started through the doorway. And as I walked into that doorway, the door opened, and I could see the man standing in the doorway. He had 2 guns raised up like this, and I figured he was going to shoot me as I went through, but as I started to run, he closed the door.
And moments later, David Young took his own life, joining his wife as the only fatalities of his deranged plan.
Anything beyond that.
Soon after, bomb expert Richard Haskell joined Ron Hartley in the investigation of how so many had escaped the deadly blast.
It exploded.
I just looked him right straight in the eyes and I said, "Ron, what happened here is a miracle." During our reconstruction of the explosive device, we learned that it was a bomb that was designed to explode in 360 degrees. But for some strange reason, instead of exploding out into the room, it went straight up into the air. I've been involved with explosives for too many years to not think that something had intervened to save those children.
The amazement of professionals involved in the case was not limited to law enforcement.
The state brought in psychologists, and all of us kids had counseling sessions to help us kind of come to grips with this. While I was in one of these sessions, the psychologist, he was really asking a lot of deeper questions, trying to bring everything out. And I started to tell him about my story. I was just sitting out there, just outside of the Tape Square, playing with Legos with my friends. And I happened to look up, and I saw a lady dressed all in white, floating above the ground. She told me to get up and go to the window. And as I was walking, I could see that there were angels everywhere in there.
Yes, I saw an angel.
When Nathan Hartley's father, Ron, heard about the angels, his first reaction was disbelief.
Nathan, we've always talked to you about telling the truth. Are you sure you saw an angel?
I really saw an angel.
And what did this angel look like?
She looks like Grandma Meister.
And I told Nathan, I said, "Look, your Grandma Meister's still alive. She's not an angel." But Nathan was so emphatic. So as a good cop, I get out the mug shots, which is our book of remembrance.
Nathan, I want you to show me the picture of who you think your angel is.
And as we were going through it, we had a picture where it has both my Grandma Meister and my Grandma Elliott.
That's That's her. That's my angel Grandma Meister.
It's not Grandma Meister, that's Grandma Elliot.
Grandma Elliot had been dead for 3 or 4 years at that time. He had sat on her lap once when he was 2, and that's the only time he'd ever seen her. I finally just said, Nathan, why didn't you tell me this before? And he just looked right at me and he said, Dad, you wouldn't believe me.
But what he heard next convinced even the veteran police officer that something miraculous had indeed happened that day.
Just before the bomb went off, the angels circled it, kind of ringed around it. And what I think is that when they did that, the bomb went off and they kept in a lot of the force.
I had all the unexplainable physical evidence that I've been dealing with for the last 2 months. And then when he told me the other side of the story, it fit like a glove. Because the bomb technicians told me they don't understand why this bomb seemed to just go straight up into the ceiling. I have no doubt that this is a miracle.
Word of Nathan's revelation didn't take long to spread through the small town.
After I'd heard what Nathan was talking about, I decided that I needed to go home and really visit with my daughters.
Tell me what you saw.
We saw an angel, Mom.
And Glenna's children also had a miraculous story to tell.
As I was coloring, I just kind of looked up and I saw a woman standing there, and she was dressed completely in white. She said, Katie, I want you to know that I love you and I will always love you and everything will be okay.
I think at first my mom thought that it was just a child's imagination.
She had a long white dress, and she was floating too.
But when we kept on telling her and we didn't stop, that she thought maybe there's more to this than what we know. Maybe they really did see angels.
And she looked like you, Mommy.
As Glenna listened, a strange feeling of recognition came over her.
Stay right here. I'll be right back.
And I remember her going out of the room and coming back with a locket. And she opened that locket, and there was my angel.
That's her. That's the angel, Mom.
That's my mother. She was your grandmother.
And my mom just started crying. And that was her mom that died when my mom was 15. And she's our angel.
And that's the only picture my mother has of her mother. And I had never seen the picture before, and I knew instantly that that's who it was.
I know that my mother's an angel and that she helps us still. I know that there's no way that those children could have got out of that building and not been hurt any more than they were without those angels that were there to help them. It was a miracle those children were spared, and our lives have been able to go on.
In my mind, there were angels in that room that particular day. There was too many things that should have happened that didn't happen. And I can honestly say that in my lifetime, I have seen a miracle.
A few days after this was all over, I had a parent talk to me and ask me, "Did you see any angels in the classroom?" And I said, "No, I didn't see any angels in the classroom, but I felt them." I totally believe that the angels were there to help us because there was no way out of the situation that we were in. No way without divine intervention.
Signs from above don't always have to be as dramatic as a group of angels shielding children from a bomb. A message from a dearly departed loved one can sometimes be much simpler and yet the emotional effect can be just as powerful. It was a Sunday morning in 1947.
Come on if you're coming!
And Joan Goodwin and her younger sisters Ramona and Annette were headed out on an adventure.
Wait!
Joan was supposed to watch after us. And so we would all go out to this deep ditch out beside our house.
We had gotten ready for church that morning, and we had on our, quote, Sunday best. And, of course, the ditch beckoned. Joan found a frog. And I thought, okay, so it's a frog. What's the big deal? But Joan, it was just like a revelation to her. She held that frog in her hands, and the fascination was born. And over the years, we identified frogs with Joan.
Joan married at a young age and gave birth to a son, Jimmy, and a daughter, Donna. And through it all, her fascination with frogs continued.
Oh, Mother always had a frog somewhere, the longest that I can remember.
My mother collected these frogs, had these frogs all over the place, but I kind of got accustomed to it. Probably her first frog was the one that her father had made, probably when she was a little girl.
And from that one frog, a collection was born.
Over the years, as different things happened in her life or as we went different places, people would bring her frogs.
She had frogs on dish towels, bath towels,
frog curtains, frog tablecloths, frog placemats,
frogs on table napkins, frogs on paper towels.
Pictures of frogs on the walls.
Frogs on her jewelry. She had earrings and necklaces and bracelets with frogs.
Different kinds of ceramic frogs.
She had the iron frog.
She had frogs inside.
Big concrete frogs outside.
Bedroom, kitchen, bathroom, dining room, living room.
There was not a room in her house that didn't have something that had a frog on it.
I asked Joan why she collected frogs. She said, well, they're so ugly, somebody's got to love them.
Over the years, Joan's frog collection grew right along with her family and circle of friends. She lived a happy life until suddenly, in June of 1991, she was diagnosed with lung cancer.
They took out half of her lung and told her that it was probably the worst kind of cancer. She said, I'm not going to let it defeat me. I'm going to fight this. And so she did.
And after months of chemotherapy, her cancer appeared to have gone into remission.
She was determined that she was going to triumph over that disease, and she did. But she was just living for that day when 5 years had passed, because traditionally cancer patients are told, if you get a clean bill of health after 5 years, then you're safe.
It was January of 1997, and Joan's 5-year anniversary was fast approaching.
She said, well, let's celebrate. My 5 years is going to be up in 2 weeks. And so we planned a celebration. Why don't we just have the fish fry down here? It was almost 5 years to the day when we were sitting out on Joan's patio. And of course, I was full of the celebration that we were going to have. I'll bring the French fry.
I've got to tell you something.
And I said, well, what is it?
Well, I went to the doctor's.
And she said, I went and had another CAT scan run, and the cancer's back.
That was really tough because I knew then that we had run out of time.
during that period of time. Friends and co-workers and relatives, everybody wants to help, but they didn't know what to do. And so I feel like that they expressed their concern and their love for Joan with more frogs. And that frog collection just grew and grew.
Over the next year, Joan fought her disease with immense courage, but the day came when she could fight no longer.
We all lined up by the bed, and every one of us, we had our hands on her all the way from the shoulder down to her hands. And she passed away. The day of the funeral came, and it dawned a gray day. It was one of those days when your heart's heavy, and Sky was crying, and we were too. We just felt such a loss, and it just seemed like that it wasn't something that would ever go away.
I watched the men from the funeral home bring in the coffin, and even then I was praying, Lord, just give us peace and help us to get through this time.
Friends, we're gathered here today to pay our final tributes to Ms. Joan Smith Goodwin.
I was looking around, just trying to find something to be focused on.
1997.
She had so many beautiful flowers. I started looking at one and then the other, and there was a white ribbon sticking out away from the rest of the flowers. But it was moving, and it got my attention, and I kept watching and kept watching, and it kept bouncing up and down.
The shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff.
I heard just a little, it was almost like a giggle. And I thought, who in the world is laughing at this horrible time? And Donna turned around, and she was motioning.
She said, "You're not going to believe this. Are there frogs out in December?" He said, "No." She said, "Yes, they are too."
And suddenly all eyes were focused on this unexpected guest, a tiny Alabama tree frog.
I could hear the whispers rumbling all behind me. It's a frog, it's a frog.
And it sat there the whole funeral, through two preachers preaching, the prayer, and everything. And the sadness of the occasion was somehow lifted by knowing that that frog was there.
It was something there that I needed to get through that funeral, to get through the next few days. If I could have gotten closer to it, I would probably have found wings on that frog.
After the funeral, everybody was looking for the tree frog. Nowhere. It vanished. It, just like it appeared, it was gone. So we all like to think that that was, you know, Mama sitting there with us, and I fully believe that she was. After the funeral, when we did try to determine what to do with Mama's frogs, there was no question as to where that first frog was going to go. It had to go with Mama.
I still like to go to the cemetery 3-4 times a week. And don't always take flowers, just go out there to spend some quality time, talking to Joan's spirit and reliving the times when Joan was with us. Looking at the frog seems to bring back all of that.
Although Joan's family misses her daily, they can't help but smile when they think of the frog who attended her funeral.
I think one of the most amazing things was it's Alabama and it's December. They're predicting snow outside. Tree frogs are not out and about anywhere. So it had to be a miracle that it was there.
The Lord just sent that frog to us to lighten our spirits, to let us know, well, Joan's up here, and I'll just send you a little reminder of her. And you know, ever since that time, any time I see a frog in any form, anywhere, that's my reminder of Joan.
They say that death is hardest on the living, for those left behind are often forced to confront a myriad of regrets, from too little time spent with their loved one to angry words left unresolved. And so, when a sign from above eases our pain and our conscience, it can only be viewed as a miracle. Carol McAdams grew up in the hills of Appalachia, surrounded by a large and loving family headed by her father, a country preacher named Roy McCoy.
I was the youngest of the 9 children in my family. I have 7 brothers and a sister who are older than me. Being the baby of the family had some advantages, but being the baby girl after 7 boys, my dad really invested a lot of time in me.
Her brother, Elmer McCoy, remembers.
Carol and Dad were very close. They were very close. It was more than just a biological relationship of father and daughter. There was a spiritual relationship.
My dad was an evangelist. And the earliest memories that I have are of my dad singing little songs with me and to me. There was always a spirit of music around our house. If we weren't making it ourselves, we were listening to records or the radio or something. There was always music.
Not only could Roy play a variety of musical instruments, he could make them as well. And little Carol liked nothing more than watching him at his craft.
He was very clever in shaping and forming things.
Come in, young lady.
And he would sit there and craft some of the most beautiful pieces you've ever seen in your life. Dad making things out of wood was as natural as Dad breathing and getting up every morning.
As Carol grew, so did her love for music, but her relationship with her father became strained.
When I hit puberty, my dad went what I call squirrely.
God. I hope he asked me, but I don't know if he's going to or not.
Carol, this is dinner time. Come take your seat.
As my body began to develop and I was growing into my teens.
Yeah, I gotta go. Okay, bye.
Dad had this hawk eye out for any man or boy that happened to look my way. He always told me, Carol, you have the chance to go to college. You have a chance to make something of your life. You're not going to just get out here and throw it away and get married. You'll end up with a house full of kids and some man abusing you, and you won't be able to take care of yourself.
In reaction to his strict control, Carol began criticizing everything her father said and did, including the first dulcimer he attempted to make. Roy had added his own loving touches to the handmade instrument, even using the shape of a cross for the single sound hole.
I have a little surprise for you.
And he offered it to me, and I told him I just didn't want it, and he asked me why.
It doesn't look right. I mean, aren't there supposed to be 2 holes here for the sound?
But it has a good tone.
It's not right. I mean, look here, the neck's all wrong. It's supposed to be, I don't know, more rounded, like a scroll, not flat.
I could really tell that it hurt his feelings, but he says, well, if you could draw a pattern for me. You know, I think I could probably get it right. I went to the school library and I saw a picture, and I drew up a little sketch for him of what the neck looked like and cut it out of construction paper. After that, he offered to make me one, and I told him I really wasn't interested.
Shortly after Carol started college, she was swept off her feet by a man 13 years older and defied her father by marrying him.
That truly, truly broke my father's heart and put a wedge between us that was never removed. It lasted my dad's entire life.
After years of silence, Carol received a call informing her that her father had been hospitalized with advanced Alzheimer's disease.
I drove to Goldsboro believing that my dad was going to know me, and not at all prepared for the heartbreak that I would feel if he didn't.
Daddy, you know who this is?
That's my baby.
I have missed you so much, Daddy.
And he put his arms around me and he cried and he held me. And then we sat and we talked for over an hour.
It's okay, you can rest.
But one visit was not enough to mend their broken relationship, and a short while later, Roy McCoy passed away. The death of her father left a tremendous hole in Carol's life, and she became determined to find a way to reconnect with him.
Some years after Dad died, Carol came to visit me, and she asked about the scrapbook, and I said, well, I have that. And she said, well, can I have it? And I said, of course.
The scrapbook is really very, very old. And as I flipped on through the pages, I found that piece of a pattern of the dulcimer neck that I had sketched out for my dad all those years ago. And just touching it brought back a flood of memories, and I wondered, Daddy, why in the world would you keep such a thing? Why would you put such a thing in a scrapbook? But it made me realize how very precious those memories were to my father, that he would have kept that all those years and that it was still there.
The discovery of the pattern set Carol on a relentless search to find a dulcimer of her own.
I'd looked through shop windows, and I looked at flea markets, and I looked in music stores. There aren't a lot of dulcimers around to be found unless you know just exactly where to go, and I didn't always know where to go, so a lot of times my searches were fruitless. I didn't see anything.
But Carol remained determined and extended her search to the internet.
And I clicked on musical instruments, and the very first instrument listed was an Appalachian lap dulcimer. They described it as obviously a homemade piece made out of scrap wood, that obviously the owner had put their heart and soul and faith into making it, and that its slight imperfections added to its charm, and that just really swept me off my feet. It was, I was already in love with the dulcimer just from the description, and I looked on down there and the price was only $47.95, and I thought, I can have this, I can order this.
And 3 days later, the package arrived.
I pulled the dulcimer out, and when I got it turned around to where I could see it, I just screamed.
Oh my God in heaven!
This is the first dulcimer my own daddy made back in 1970.
It was more than she had ever hoped for.
That one piece that at one time had been so imperfect and so ugly to me just glowed as the most beautiful piece of woodwork I'd ever seen in my life. And I could see the love and the care that my father had put into making it that I didn't see back when I was 18 years old.
Doesn't look right.
It had been 31 years since Carol refused her father's gift and wounded his pride. And her long search to find a dulcimer to replace it had come up empty-handed until perhaps another hand led the way.
I really feel like my dad was guiding me. It was on that website for 16 months. Nobody wanted it. And here was this most precious piece of craftsmanship that I could ever hold in my hands was out there, and it didn't mean anything to anybody. But I feel like my dad's spirit guided me to find that and to bring that instrument home. And by bringing it home, I feel like I've been forgiven and that all is well between my dad and me now.
Well, that's our show for now. Thank you for joining us, and a special thanks to all the people who shared their remarkable stories tonight on It's a Miracle. It's our hope that whenever you need one, you'll find a miracle in your life too. Until next time, I'm Richard Thomas. Goodbye.